First up is approval of the minutes from our October meeting. One has any changes or edits, let us know, but otherwise, if we can have a motion to approve those.
So move.
That was Denise, right?
Yep.
Okay, just making sure. Second,
I'll second, Deborah.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any no's or abstentions? So then I think we are ready to move on to the affiliate applications. We didn't have quite as many this time. Got a big group of folks back in October. And I believe, I'm trying to think, Rachel, our next meeting is going to be in February, correct?
Yes.
It's not a test. It's okay.
Is there a threshold at which we would have an ad hoc meeting? A threshold of applications at which point we would have an ad hoc meeting?
I think that's a great question. I don't know what the answer is. Do we feel like, okay, so today we had 20,
24.
23, is that it?
Yeah.
23 applications. So do we feel like this is about as many as we would want to do at a time? I know the last one we had 49. So I guess my question is, if we get to 25, do we want to try to schedule an ad hoc meeting? Or is there a number that feels right for folks?
I have a question. What is your sense of how quickly these are coming in? How many more are coming in? I mean, is this starting to get around or is it finishing up, I guess? Is your sense of this at all?
That's a great question. I think it's hard to get a really good sense of it. This felt like a wrapping in a bunch of folks who probably just missed out on that October deadline. But what I'll also say is that I think there are quite a few. There are some local committees that are getting better formulated, and I think they're going to start to come in next. I think this first group was the local committees who are really on top of what they're doing, and then the cultural organizations and museums and historical societies that are really in tune with what the commission is doing. So I think the next group is probably going to be newer local committees, smaller historical societies that aren't as involved, and other I'm hoping we can start. We had a great conversation at last week's engagement committee meeting around libraries and how to get them involved. So I think that's another group we might start seeing come in. So I think it's all that said, I think it really is going to depend who we're reaching out to. I think there are lots of groups that are not represented yet, and that if we start reaching out to those groups, we're going to get a big influx of applications.
Could we maybe approach this in a different way, which is to say, I mean, if we make this just about approvals and we say roughly, let's target the 18th or whatever of every month. And if there's a minimum threshold that we haven't touched, then we go to the next month. But I feel like we're just getting started, and to wait till February seems like a long stretch. And I'd like to make hay with this in the sense that, this is another press release opportunity. It's another community engagement opportunity. getting people to talk about this. I would like to encourage an attempt to encourage each of these 23 applicants, or however many are accepted, to let their local commission know, or to start the wheels turning on getting a local commission going. Sort of like for those of you who were at the fundraiser at Mohegan Sun, like I gave homework to all the attendees. Your job is to go and get the wheels turning on a local commission if there isn't one already.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jason. I think, having these meetings with cities in particular, where there are a whole lot of people are represented at the table, I didn't notice in particular that there were some from Hartford, I know, but we had that meeting just last week, and those are going to generate some interest as well. And it just takes so long to get around. I was at a meeting, it was actually a rally today about immigrants, and Henry Rilling was there, for example. He's mayor of Norwalk, and he still didn't really know anything about it, even though I've talked to Bob Duff, I've talked to, and they all say, oh, yes, we're going to get someone to do this. And then it just sort of falls between the cracks. So I think, as we make more efforts to reach larger groups, I think they're going to come in quickly too. I agree. This should be an opportunity for PR, an opportunity for a press release, and it may start getting some coverage that way. So I think we should meet more frequently than less frequently. So I like the idea of a certain number. I think also at least once a month from now for the next 6 months at least.
Yeah, and it needn't be a long meeting. We can
exactly.
accomplish this in 15 minutes.
Right.
So we can work on getting some ad hoc meetings in between those quarterly and longer meetings and get it scheduled for maybe 30 minutes, just so that we have the time set aside, and we'll aim to keep these meetings shorter.
Yeah.
And we'll probably try to stick to this time frame, which I think has been the third Monday of the month.
And Cindy, is there a way, just thinking of visibility, Cindy and Rachel anyway, can we at least create a master list of organizations in the legislative districts that they're in, and let legislators know who's in, who's out, so that they can talk in their own communities, and then they're building capacity and thinking about it?
Great
as well?
idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking that would be a great way to also encourage to let other groups know who's already involved, so that they can start to work together, so that maybe they could, start planning some like larger, more broad, even like regional type of projects, in addition to, like the more local town-based ones.
Yeah.
Good idea.
We're not going to get it turned around overnight, but hopefully early December. I'd like to say we can have this ready. I don't think, Rachel, it's going to be a heavy lift.
So sorry I was late. My computer needed to reboot. Did you guys start with minutes approval or anything? You did. Okay, so that's strong. Okay, sorry. So are we now moving on to the review of the forms? Okay. So from what I saw, there weren't any red flags for me in terms of the new ones that have come through. Did anybody have any questions, any submissions that you thought needed to be discussed further?
I don't have any further questions. I thought it was a pretty smooth run, except the last one, the witch trials. Ariane and I don't even think staff had a recommendation on this. Is this just a carryover from last time? We don't have any more information?
We do have more information, right? Rachel, I think you said, or no?
Yes, so I didn't pull their original application into here. Which I probably should have done, but what we do have is the additional information that we asked them for, which we asked them to tie into the themes. So I copied that over into here, and I'll pull up their original application just to make sure, but I think everything was pretty straightforward about their application. They said yes to everything, and all of that. There was just concern or questions on how they were going to tie into the themes of the commission. So they shared that with me over the weekend.
Okay.
And can you remind me, is this is not a Connecticut-based group? Is that right? They were like
Their
somewhere else.
address is Colorado.
Okay.
But they are focused on Connecticut. So
Like solely or in addition to?
so I think it was essentially just focused on Connecticut. There might have been
Okay.
a bit of Massachusetts tied in there too.
Okay.
But they're not their address is Colorado, but they don't seem to be a Colorado organization.
Okay. So strange.
And actually their phone number is a Massachusetts number.
The plot thickens.
It's funny, having lived in Colorado, there are so many people who are in both Colorado and Connecticut, and I find so many similarities between the two states. So basically they want to I'm still unclear how it relates to the 250.
That's a problem.
It's a pretty broad interpretation here.
Yeah.
I just, I don't know if they're affiliated. I have a lot of family in Colorado, and I know there are quite a lot of witches and what do you call the men?
Warlocks.
Yes,
No.
warlocks in Colorado. It's kind of a thing out there. I don't know if it's just Colorado, and so I don't know. Without a very firm tying of some sort to the 250th, I worry that we're getting a little far afield here.
And there's a pretty loose interpretation of doing history, which is fine, but not quite 250th aligned in the same. For the common good, they're talking about marginalized people, raising awareness, contemporary witch hunts.
That's pretty loose.
I'm not even sure why they are interested in trying to tie into 250.
They did also send me an update a couple of hours ago saying that they're planning an event with the old State House, and asked us to let Sally know.
Oh yeah, I
If they
would
become
really
affiliated.
like to hear from Sally about that. That might make me feel more easy
That's
about
a good
this.
idea.
Yeah, maybe we're missing
One
something.
way. Yeah.
I mean, but it looks like they're trying to start a memorial also. They have like a project that they're trying to do, a Connecticut witch trial memorial of sorts.
I could buy an argument if they were coming at it through the lens of due process and law, a legal framework, but I'm not.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
not really being pitched here.
Yeah, they're doing it more like a sense of belonging and disenfranchised people. I think the other question I have that I'm sitting with, and because I'm newer in the process, so I'm not quite sure, but have we made any statements within the commission on preference to Connecticut-based organizations? I mean, because yeah,
I don't think we made a determination based on that. I will say that for Connecticut Humanities grant funding, it has to be a Connecticut 501c3, but we haven't established that crossover yet organizationally between the commission's work and Connecticut Humanities. But if we want to lean into that, it might be a way of exploring.
Does anyone know if this group is inspired by the legislation that's been proposed in the last couple of years about witch hunts and so
Probably.
forth?
I think they were one of the drivers of it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Did that ever pass? I can't remember.
Yes.
Think,
Did it?
Yeah.
So we're not going to do witch hunts in Connecticut anymore. Is that right? Oh, and there was an exoneration piece to that
Right.
as well, right? Ah, yes, I'm remembering this now.
So I would suggest or maybe propose that we defer this until a December deadline, ask for Sally's input. If we can get sort of a conversation going through the lens of civic health or civil rights, that may be. Sally might be able to translate this better for us.
Good idea. I like
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Want to have a conversation with Weathersfield at all? And I can't remember if it's Weathersfield Historical Society or Webding Stevens. I know they've done a lot of joint programming with them as well.
Okay.
And I think it's tied to Blackbird Pond. And
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't mind reaching out to both, that would be helpful. And this may just be lost in translation here.
But I do think we have to be careful because we are the ones that have legitimacy with some of this, and I don't want this to become this so overarching that it's no longer about anything. You know what I mean? And this strikes me as quite a stretch. I don't know. But I would really value Sally's input here if she's involved with this group.
Okay, great. So do we want to then move forward with kind of doing what we did last time with taking a full, like one vote on all the new submissions and then one vote to table the witch trials till December?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so for all the 24, 23 new ones, all in favor of passing those?
Aye.
That's anyone against? Any abstentions? Okay, so those are all passed. And then for the end witch trials, tabling until December when we have more feedback, all in favor of that? Yes. Anyone opposed to that? Any abstentions? Okay, I think that then passed as well. Right?
just a point of
Great.
Just a point of clarification on the sheet. Is the organization End Witch Trials or End Witch Hunts? I think we represent it as two different things. In their commentary, they put End Witch Hunts, but I think we've listed them as End Witch Trials.
Rachel's looking it up. And I'm
Yeah,
gonna-
in the language, it talks about contemporary witch hunts. In the title,
Yeah, it's on witch hunts. That's just a typo on me.
Okay, yeah, yep, just
Now it's hunts.
thank you.
Great. Okay, anything else on this affiliate program? Nope. Okay. So moving on to the annual report, in the large commission meeting, we announced that the subcommittees should be putting their reports together. I saw that Rachel and Cindy sent out previous reports to everybody so that they kind of had something to work off of. So we are hopefully expecting them, and by the end of this week, well, we are expecting them. We'll see what comes in. I assume there'll be some like follow-up needed, but other than that, I guess we just need to discuss kind of next steps now that we have more people in our subcommittee. We can maybe divide up our work on this a little bit. I think what we did last year was, Cindy, you and I spoke in like December, and then each kind of split up work and then worked on it, and then came back together in January to finalize, and then you guys kind of completely finalized it by the end of January, right? So we're looking at, once the reports come in, kind of reviewing them, putting them together. Do we want to do that as a group when we meet for our December meeting, now that we're meeting monthly?
Why don't Rachel and I put together a breakdown and a timeline for that December meeting, and we can go over it and just confirm everyone's okay with it? I think that's probably the easiest way. And that December meeting is going to be December 16th. So what we might actually try to do is get everything from everybody before Thanksgiving. We'll try to kind of at least get everything together in one document, and maybe try to send it to this subcommittee earlier in December, just so you can have it and start to digest what's in there, along with a plan, and then we can talk about it on that 16th. That feels okay to people.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And then we can see how much work we think is needed in writing it all up, and see if we need to kind of divide it up, or if somebody is dying to take it on as their project. And, we could talk about that in December, and then that'll give us time to have it in on time.
I would only add to that I spoke with Cindy and Rachel last week about sort of taking at least the bullet pointed summarized report and creating some kind of glossy, nice report for the governor's office and the legislature that we can share on what we've accomplished in the past year with respect to town meetings, our town committees, affiliate program, grants made out, and so on. And then, of course, we have our bling that we can send to everybody now too, so that they can be supportive up in Hartford with that information.
And I think what we're thinking is basically a 2-page infographic with some summary information and things like that, just so that it's less dense.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
People to take a look at it.
As I'm thinking about this timing wise, would be nice. We had some sort of draft that I could show to the governor before we actually release the report in January. And in some ways that might spur them to be part of the release as opposed to just receiving it. So I'd be happy to help, craft this report, if you need me to help with that. And then I can get it to Kathy D'Amato at his office and suggest that we have a meeting with the draft, so that they can think about what they want to do with it as well.
I think any level of engagement with the governor's office, Denise, would be terrific.
Yeah, I think it would be really helpful if we can get them to help us think about the report and what it needs to, sort of suggest to them or whatever, I mean, they may want to be part of the release of the report. I don't know. I mean, it's a possibility, and that would really get a little more buy-in at that level. And if they see all the things we've done, I think it's going to be very helpful, because it's really, there's a lot there, that's happened over this last year. And we're in a much different position than we were a year ago, because we have a lot of buy-in from the grassroots now. So I think that's really important to communicate. So even if we had something that was just honestly kind of a rough draft with some data points, and say, look, we're framing this report, and maybe we could get a meeting with them and talk about it a little bit in December.
I mean,
You think that's possible, Cindy? I mean, I don't want to put too much on you guys, because I know it's, the first challenge is getting the information from the subcommittees, and then, putting it together into something. So I want to be realistic too, but if maybe by mid-December we could have some kind of like a very drafty draft that I could get to them, it would be good, I think.
I think the drafty draft would simply be updating, Cindy and Rachel, what we've given the commission already in terms of grants, committees.
Right.
It's basically there. It just needs to be updated. And I'm sorry if I'm minimizing the amount of work that means for you guys, but I do think that we've got the nuts and bolts of this.
started to say something. I didn't want to cut you off.
Sorry, me?
Who's Cindy?
Oh, yes.
Ariana.
I was slightly off topic, but somewhat related. I was just thinking, is Connecticut 250 putting in for any kind of legislation this year? This session? I wasn't sure.
That remains to be discussed. What we've really tried to do is not complicate the funding landscape with more asks than makes sense. Last year, I think it got really confusing with asking for arts, culture, and tourism funding, and then Kathy Austin asked us to also put in for 250th, and I think it just looked like a ton of money, and we ended up with nothing. So, I think what we've proposed is essentially what would be $5 million to Connecticut Humanities, and through that we would build a 250th campaign. I think that bears out some additional conversation with legislative leaders, Jason Rojas in particular, and Kathy Austin, who engaged it directly with legislative proposals. So we'll have to see. I will say on the national level, Rob Krett and I are talking, at least initially, about some kind of earmark for Connecticut through Connecticut Humanities for 250th related initiatives. I don't know where that's going to go at the moment, but it's a conversation that we've at least started.
Okay, great. So maybe also thinking about the report through that lens of needing to present it to legislators.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the annual report? How about any other business? All right, so I think we're good. So we'll add upcoming meetings to our calendar. And see you in December.
Yeah. Sounds great. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Nice to see you all.